Huh.
Funny technology, huh? You never know.
I know. Let's see if we are.
It's great now having all these modern conveniences, but then they don't work.
I know we're on YouTube.
We're on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely on YouTube. But
the Facebook Live is not happening, or
yeah. For some reason, it's not showing up on on Facebook. So
how do I check it? Do I go on my Facebook on here and look?
You don't have to check it.
Okay.
It's yeah, might be something with my restream.
So it doesn't look like it's live, huh?
Sorry?
Oh, it doesn't look like it's live, huh? I can't tell, but I'm just
Yeah.
I'm just answering.
We're working on it. Might be a little unusual, but
Okay.
still here.
Sure. I have Sibelius open. That won't affect it. Should I close it out? It doesn't affect it, does it? No.
No, you're good. It's on my end.
Yeah, that's the problem with broadband. It could be, you know.
It says we're on there.
I'm sure we are. I'm sure we are.
Well, we're on YouTube,
Yeah.
but it says we're on Facebook, but I'm not seeing it on Facebook. So
It's another animal, Facebook. Yeah, I'm not sure.
ah, there we are. All right,
It works. Cool.
we're on again now, so that's cool.
Very cool.
Well, we didn't see you play, but we will. We will. Ladies and gentlemen, we had a little bit of interesting problems this morning, but now we're here, and you just never know about technology, do you?
Well, I remember years ago watching TV as a little kid in the 50s, it would say, stand by or something. We were having technical difficulties.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like the major networks, but they would always have something wrong with, and very rarely you see that on TV. But like I told you earlier before we went on, these modern conveniences are great, but they don't always work.
That is so true. And that is what we are dealing with. Boy, I was telling somebody yesterday, I think it was Michelle Coltrane, that,
Oh, wow.
yeah, that was a really fun conversation. I was telling her that in the beginning, I used to have, I had my iPad. So you would have been on Zoom on my iPad on a music stand, and then I would be doing Facebook Live. So I did that for a few months, and then somebody said, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to be more professional than that. So anyway, and I'm just fixing my technical stuff. And then, yep, I'm just fixing I like to be all set up. So just in case. Yeah. So my guest today is Doug MacDonald.
Nice to be here. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Absolutely.
Doug and I go way back, actually. When did you come to LA?
I came about 84, 85, and we were talking about the old scene around Toluca Lake, how there was Dante's and Alphonse's and the Money Tree, and there was a little bit of a hangout. And
Dadney's.
like everything else, it changes. Yeah, it all changes, and played a lot of those places. And things will change no matter what city you're in. Same thing in Honolulu or New York City or anywhere. Las Vegas is obviously everything's different. Where's the dunes? They imploded it. Where's the sands?
They always what do we used to say? Every gig must end or something like that.
I never thought of that. That's true. Yeah. Oh, sure. Definitely. I've been through that a lot. I know you have. Every gig will end.
Yeah, but the old days in LA were really fun. I think the community was kind of smaller, right? There was less people. This community
I think the demographic changed. Like I mentioned, the Money Tree. When I got out of here about 84, 85, it was you'd go into the Money Tree or somewhere. I'd be kind of the youngest guy. A lot of older people were in studios, and they weren't that old, but it was a different demographic than now. Now, if I go into someplace, I'm the oldest guy. Look at that. I got to trim this damn thing. It grew so fast. But anyway, it is what it is. So.
Yeah, well, I know that's totally like, yeah, whatever. But no, I think looking back, there was a younger crowd. Like we were playing originals. We were playing at places like the Comeback Inn and stuff like that. Yeah. And actually, it wasn't only a younger crowd. It was, who am I thinking? The guy from Brazil, Moacir Santos, and John Pisano. And, there were a lot of people playing different stuff, but we also had this kind of straight ahead crowd at places like Dante's, Carmelo's, Chadney's, Alphonse's. I mean, those were all happening at the same time,
Right.
and it was a hang. It was such a hang, you know. The music was good, but the hang was so,
Yeah,
you
that
know.
was very special. You don't see that now. And like even in New York City, I say everybody's 13, but they're like 23. There's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, it's just different. You know,
Yeah.
the hang is different, you know, like you said. You know, Sarah Vaughan, we used to run into her all the time, you know, at places or whoever it would be.
Yeah.
And whoever was passing through, like the MJQ, they'd be at Dante's, or you run into Ray Bryant or whoever, you know, just people that were traveling through town. But I don't know, it happens less frequently now, you know, I think, you know, or more infrequently, whatever.
Yeah. And also, oh, hi, Francesca Amari
Oh,
is on.
yeah, yeah, she was going to listen in. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I think, what was I going to say?
Some of
Yeah, that time
the,
period too, like you said, you know, MJQ passing through. I mean, that just doesn't really,
no,
that kind of era of people doesn't really pass through anymore. It's definitely the younger, or not the younger necessarily, but the present, the
the
present.
present. Yeah, it's just, you know, it's like talking to Sam Most on the airplane one time. We're going to Vegas.
Yeah,
And, you know, he had a lot of interesting stories, you know, and of course his
yeah,
brother Abe Most was another one. But
yeah.
Sam said, well, because I said, you know, I feel like I missed the boat on the age thing, being caught in this quagmire. James Williams used to talk about that too back east, how, you know, there's kind of an age gap. You know, there's the good old boys and then the young lions, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
I mean, it's not quite true, but it does. Well, Sam said it's always that way. He said, you know, 52nd Street didn't last that long, and he felt he came along a little bit too late for that. You
Hmm.
know, there was a time you get on 52nd Street, you'd see, oh my gosh, there's Art Tatum, there's you know, Billie Holiday or whoever, you know, Al Cohn, Zoot Sims, all kinds of interesting music. And you didn't last that long though, from what he was saying. And I guess that's true. You know,
Yeah,
these things don't last forever, you know.
yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's why I like to, that's one reason I like to talk to older musicians, the veterans,
Yeah.
because of that. I mean, they're pretty much the last people who are going to talk about it. Sheila Jordan came here whenever, a year or two ago,
Oh yeah.
and it was so good to hear her sing. And she really carried, she's like 91 or two.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, she really carried this feeling that I've been there.
Yeah.
My job is to tell you what it was. You
That's
know,
so nice. I love that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was great.
My composition teacher was that way, a guy named Spud Murphy. I actually studied
Oh,
with the student first, David Blumberg, and I studied later on, and then I studied with Spud, but he was already in his 90s. But so interesting, Spud, because he had been there in the beginning with Benny Goodman. He was one of the early Benny Goodman arrangers. Then they went to Fletcher Henderson and a bunch of other people. But, you know, Spud, I mean, he didn't like it, but even that Three Stooges heading says, Three Blind Mice by Lyle Spud Murphy, you know, it's like, but it was just a source music cue. It wasn't something he really wanted to, you know. Anyway, there's
He's
a whole
really proud
connection.
of.
Yeah, Hal Roach and all these people, which I played his, I don't know if it was 80th birthday or something, but anyway, all this old timers was interesting, you know, like Spud and it's so fantastic with all the rich tradition, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, so I know you're from Philly, um, and um, and then you went to Hawaii directly. Is that
well,
what
what
happened?
happened is my folks moved west and they didn't really tell me we were moving west. It was like, oh, thanks for telling me. You know, all of a sudden we're in Philly. We went to Vegas for about a year and then, oh, we're going to Hawaii. I said, huh?
Oh,
So I read a book. I thought it was going to be like the Kings and Queens back in Lilio Kalani's day. King Kamehameha, a lot different, you know. So coming way west to eat whatever the hell it is after when you get out there, it's like, oh, this is weird. It's different, you know. And you know, it's hard to fit in at first because you're really a foreigner.
yeah,
Yeah, and that's what the word haole means. It really doesn't mean white person. It means foreigner. You know, you could be black and be a Korean and be a foreigner, but the thing is, I mean, when you show up, it's like, wow, you're really different. You know, you're dressed differently. You're in school as a kid. But anyway, I got over that. And it was interesting. I think all these places, I returned to the East around aside from trips. But around 90-91, I went to the New York metro area for about a year and a half, and I was living in Montclair, New Jersey, which is not that far. You go out Route 3 from the Lincoln Tunnel, you're in 15 minutes, you're in past the Giants Secaucus, and then you're in Montclair, which is above Newark, and a lot of history of Newark, of course. That drummer that you saw in the reorganized quartet, he was from Newark, and Jimmy Smith was, a lot of people. Anyway, so the idea was that it was so different, but I felt like it was going to a school, even though not to bore everybody with this, but that year and a half trip back east, I just didn't feel like my head was in the right place for it. You know what I mean? It's like showing up, you can't expect too much. You just have to be open to whatever it is. And here I'm expecting, like it was in Toluca Lake, it wasn't the same. You know what I mean? That's just the way you have to flow with things,
Yeah. So did you go there after you had been in LA?
Yeah, I left after about 7-8 years in LA, and I decided, well, let me try New York, because as we talked about around 90-91, Dante's had closed, and the China Trader had closed, and like I said, not that these were that glamorous, because you still had to work other gigs, and you had to do other teaching, whatever you had to do. Yeah. But the idea was that the scene kind of was drying up a little bit in the early 90s, which is naturally, 7-8 years later, it's going to. So I figured, well, let me try New York. And I thought, well, I'd worked with all these people in LA, but when you go back east with younger people and you say, well, I just saw Pete Jolly, they go, who's that? It's like, it wasn't a big interest in the west of the Rockies. Of course, real dedicated jazz fans would know everybody, the Bill Holmans and the Pete Jollies and whoever else. But some of the other people, unless it's Sonny Rollins or, you know what I mean? It's something you're not into,
Yeah.
You've experienced that, I'm sure,
Sure. Did you, what were you, I mean, you've kind of said it, but what were you looking for?
Good question. I just thought, when I moved back there, you meant right around 1991. What I was thinking, which actually was true, I always had a patience problem, but when I went back there, I thought things would happen a little quicker. Like you had to wait so long to get a gig. And then I realized, well, it's the same thing back here now. It's just the times we were in, and at the time, like talking to a pianist named John Bunch, he said, well, the East Coast is in a real economic slump around 1991. The Gulf War had broken out and just things weren't that great. And when it came to a gig or something, they said, well, we have a whole bunch of people that are waiting to get this, and Sublist is the same thing. We got a bunch of people. And, of course, then back here was the same way, but I just had been so entrenched back here that it, so I think the transferring over, I expected it to be faster, but it was really slow. And I was able to hustle things because I learned in Hawaii, you got to hustle your own gigs, which on the mainland here, they weren't as used to doing that, I remember a lot of people talk, like Marty Harris said, waiting for the phone to ring. I said, well, over there, we couldn't do that. You had to make it happen yourself because the phone isn't going to ring, So, but I think the idea is I'm expecting too much too soon. I've learned to deal with impatience. I want something to happen yesterday. And I think it was just, like I said, I wasn't as open to things as I should have been. And even the course that I was talking about, Spud, I'm studying it again on my own 20 years later. And my mind is more open now. So I'm saying, oh, okay, I get it. It's a 12-book thing. And I'm in book 8. And I'm saying, oh, I'm finally getting this 20 years later, So.
Well, that was, I do remember actually speaking with you now, I do remember that part of our attraction as people to each other was that we were both actively looking for work,
Of course.
and
Yeah.
creative stuff. Because as you say, a lot of musicians didn't. They just waited around, Yeah. And I lived with one musician like that, and it was
Sure.
crazy. It was like, you can't just sit around.
No.
You have to go, go out and even at the very least, go out and hang out. So
Well,
people go, oh, hi, Doug. Hey, I have a gig for you,
Well, that would do it years ago. You'd run into somebody, oh, can you work tomorrow night or can you work Saturday? Yeah, I think that was at least what you had to do. And just call people and say hi. I mean, I used to a lot of times just say, hey, I'm just calling to say hello. And I'm actually saying, you have anything happening?
Exactly.
A nice way to say,
But it's nice. Yeah, it's like it covers everything. It's good for everything. It's good for
Yeah.
your soul and your friendship and work because that's what how we're friends pretty much unless you just happen to make a real dear friendship and talk a lot. But yeah, Sam. Speaking of Sam Most, Sam and I,
Yeah.
we didn't like talk all the time, but
No.
we were kind of tight. We had some similar stuff in our background, and
Sure.
I really loved him. He had such a hip perspective.
He did, yeah. It's funny too. A lot of times I noticed that my parents were from a sales background, just accidentally. So
Yeah.
one of the things with hustling gigs is I could talk to a club owner and say, well, we can probably bring you some business and what you're getting in advertising. So if they believe what you're saying and they like you, then that's it. It's that simple. You're selling yourself, not the product. So they don't know anything about jazz, maybe. Luckily, you'll find somebody that is a jazz fan. Great, fantastic. You're home free. But
Right.
otherwise, if you say, look, it's a really win-win situation because what you're paying for the band, you're getting free advertising for. And today it's so easy because you don't have to do that damn mail out. And remember people sending those
Oh
cassettes
yes, I remember that.
and then fax came out and somebody said fax me. And then some people had to pay because they didn't have a fax machine. Now it's just all electronic, downloading.
I
But
know.
can you imagine what it costs? Like if you went to Sunset Boulevard or what do you call Ventura Boulevard, and you tried to open up a club, what it would cost? It'd be crazy. I mean, I understand their point. I can see both sides, the business side and the artistic side, because the rents alone would be crazy.
Oh yeah, I know. And I dream about opening some kind of a place and like maybe a shared
Yeah,
venue.
sure.
But I mean, you need a lot of experienced minds to run someplace. It's just like if I opened a place, who knows if I could keep it running. Yeah, I can book it,
Right.
but I don't know what goes on in the kitchen or the bar or
That's
anything.
a hard gig. I think it would have to be like a nonprofit concert space.
Yeah.
However, I don't know how that would work. I do a radio show on Mondays. That's nonprofit. The guy is very good that organized it. His name is Alan Schultz. He had the station. I think it's KRM. What's that? KRML, whatever it is. I always forget the name of it up in Carmel. The one that Clint Eastwood always talked about. But
Oh,
that's
okay.
a nonprofit thing, and that's a big thing to organize, even though it's a small studio. I'm there most Mondays, 2 to 4 Pacific time, doing a radio show.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, so I'll have to get one of your latest CDs. I don't think I have the latest one.
Okay. What are the call letters?
It's let's see, it's actually 95.3, but
95.3. Okay.
yeah, it's Jesus, I know what it is, but
That's
my
okay.
brain.
95.3. That
Yeah,
that
but I think you have to go online and it's oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I know what it is now. It's just I'm somebody KAG, excuse me, KAJIradio.org. That's the way to get on. Because you have to be, unless you're not in that area, KAJI radio.org. That would be it. Yeah.
okay. I'm gonna just write that
Thank
down.
you so much. Yeah, it's fun. And I find things to talk about, like you mentioned, somebody that used to pass through Toluca Lake or wherever, and just say, oh, here's their. I remember Harry Sweets Edison or whoever, Leroy Vinegar, somebody that.
Leroy Vinegar. Oh,
Yeah,
God, when I was first in town,
yeah.
I worked at Dante's as a waitress.
I remember I hadn't gotten here yet, but I heard about you. Yeah,
Yeah, for like a year and a half, and Leroy was there. He was
yeah, of
That was, that's where I met Sam Most and
course.
Frank Severino. He
Oh
kind of
yeah, I met
taught
him.
me.
Sure.
And yeah, that was great. I still have really fun memories of all that stuff, and meeting people and stuff. But yeah, and Leroy hung around there and played during that time. Oh, okay, thank you. I I wrote it in and it popped up like,
Super.
a nice little banner. Very nice, very nice. Um, yeah, and speaking of that, my friend Dan Davila, oops,
Okay.
he um, he is showing me, which I'm going to show you.
Sure.
Oh, look who popped up behind
Oh,
the
Ron
scenes.
Anthony of all things. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I think Deanie
Oh, look, that's gosh, I
Deanie
can't think.
Clark.
That's Deanie, right? And who's the other guy on the left?
That guy was Robert Walker. He was.
I don't know if I knew him. I don't know if I knew him.
He was a singer, but he was part of our California Pop and Jazz Council. That's
Sure,
what,
I met him. I just didn't remember him that well. Yeah.
yeah. So this is allmusic.com. They're
Okay.
usually somewhat accurate, but sometimes they're not because whatever. So let's start actually on the lower side. So these are perhaps some of the things that you did.
Well, yeah, we have a guy in Hawaii. He's a retired blind professor in his 80s, and he's like a jazz patron. He's been helping us finance some of these recordings. I've had other people help me too. I'm just very lucky to have this. And we've done about 4 or 5 recordings for Don. This is one of them, a salute to the jazz composers. We just did a jazz octet. In fact, you mentioned Francesca's. He was on our concert yesterday, and it's 4 horns and 4 rhythm, and she was the guest vocalist. But speaking about clubs, I think concerts are the best way to go with jazz, because then you're getting a dedicated audience as opposed to a restaurant where people are eating and talking. And I certainly understand that they're there to socialize and they're spending money, but you know what I'm saying is the concert venue, I think, is the ideal for what the music we're doing. I think,
I love it.
yeah.
Definitely. So these but these are
Individual albums, yeah, like Salute to Jazz California Quartet was with Kim Richmond as our guest, and then which one is that one? I don't know which one that is. Doug MacDonald Band. I don't know which one that is.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. It's called the Doug MacDonald Band. Is that you?
It may not be me. That may be somebody else.
See, that's why I'm thinking, because there are some Doug MacDonalds around.
Yeah, there's a guy in Chicago. Minor Blues was a that's an old vinyl one. Yeah, that was done in Hawaii. And It's a Blue World was a trio that I had for years with Jack LeCompte and Lou Schock. They were around town.
Oh man.
It feels like everybody I played with has died. It's just
Boy, those two guys were so ensconced in the.
Well, Jack worked with you at the Sportsman's.
Absolutely.
And I think Lou was a sub, I think, once in a while with you.
Yeah. And you have more Jazz Marathon.
Yeah, those are Don's. Those last 2 you did. And New York Session is a real old one I did when I lived in Hawaii. It was done in New York, but that's an old one. And I just don't like to listen. For me, I don't like to listen to anything I do. But when I hear stuff I did more than a year or 2 back, I feel like, oh my God, that's like my student. You know what I mean? It feels like, geez, I've hopefully learned something. I feel like I'm a late bloomer too. Instead of learning everything at 19, I'm still learning. I'm still my own student.
That's good.
Yeah, I think so.
So how about Toluca Lake Jazz?
Well, that's Harvey Newmark and I. We did a duo recording because we always rehearse a lot together. And I said, why don't we go in and record it? We were pretty well rehearsed. So that was nice. And it came across nice, a lot of reviews and a lot of airplay. It doesn't mean a lot of financial success, but at least that was one of Don's thing. We had 2 quintets, mine, and we had Roger Newman, who passed away. So I'm glad we got him on something.
Yeah.
View from the City I did in New York about 6 years ago or so. I don't know what year it says there. I can't see. But anyway, that's with Harvey S., who also works with Sheila Jordan, the bass player.
That's
Harvey.
Right. He's a great bass player.
Yeah, Steve Williams, the drummer. And that was done in Queens, New York. And then Hollywood Heroes, I got to get myself a copy of the CD. I don't know where mine is. I want to play it on the radio, but that was a good record for me because it was in the mid 80s. And all sorts of people across the country, because it was on Concord and it got a lot of airplay and reviews. So I made a lot of lifetime friends from that album, so
Ah,
it was good.
well,
Uh,
maybe my friend Dan can find it. He's really good about finding
yeah.
records. So
And
Dan,
I just need to burn a copy. I don't really need the physical cover and, but whatever it takes to get it, because Alan doesn't have it at the state. I don't have it. And my friends don't seem to see I don't know what happened to my copy. It's weird, but anyway.
and now here's a group. Where did they pass away, or did someone?
No, the wife did. I hear from Donnie, lives in Vegas. I did about 3 albums with them. That's the Cunninghams. I'm glad that popped up. So that's called All Music. That's good to find stuff on. That's great. Okay. What I was saying is that the Cunninghams were a vocal duo, and they actually did a lot of bebop singing, as you remember. You've heard
They
them.
were great.
Yeah.
They were great.
And they rehearsed a lot, and we did about 3 albums with them, and we used to do a lot of gigs with them. I think we were supposed to go somewhere with them, and then the trip got canceled, somewhere like a cruise of the Nile by the Egypt and all that. But they canceled it because they felt it wasn't safe. This was right before, quite a while before COVID. But unfortunately, she passed away, so I don't think he's as active.
Yeah. They were in Japan when I was in Japan too.
Yeah, you did some Japan gigs, didn't you?
Yeah. And the Doug MacDonald quartet.
Oh, that's an old one. Yeah, I got Ray Brown and Jake Hanna to do that one, and Ross, a good friend of yours too, Ross Tompkins. Yeah.
Ooh, God, that must have been great.
Yeah, it's been so long since we talked about some of these people. It's funny, like I just mentioned, the whole rhythm section there is gone. Weird.
That was a classic rhythm section.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
and then, did you play with the Clayton Hamilton band?
I did their first big band album. Yeah, that's Groove Shop over there. I think I got a solo on Rain Check or something. Yeah, that was fun, except it was hectic trying to force the whole album in one night. And, you know how it could be sometimes a stressful situation, but all in all, it came out good,
Yeah. And then,
oh God, I recorded with him. Yeah, he was kind of a strange guy.
Yeah.
He had a Bill Showbiz history.
Yeah.
And I did a Christmas album with him once too, but yeah, he was a little bit difficult, but like a lot of show business people are, not a bad guy, but just, the show, like I worked with Buddy Greco a lot, and he was so difficult. I didn't dislike him. You remember Buddy Greco, right?
Yeah, sure.
But he was just never a happy camper. I know the show business thing can be a very stressful. That's the word. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's 2 more Cunningham ones.
Yeah, we did those. I forgot about those. Oh my gosh, yeah.
That they were really good. So this must be really.
I would have
swing. That sounds good.
Yeah, I would have hoped a lot of those people, like the Cunninghams, would have gotten a higher profile. But it's like a lot of things. It doesn't, like Kenny Burrell said, it doesn't always hit the hit parade. And that's the way it is. Because he'd have a concert here in town, and he'd say, "Well, you may not know these players because they're not necessarily like a Herman Riley wasn't that well known, but a great player, if you remember him."
Yeah, I totally do.
Whoever else Kenny was working with at the time,
Yeah. And Bill Holman?
Yes, I was luckily a very small, like a friend of mine was saying, it's okay to be a small part in a big machine. I have a very small part of this album, but it was nice to be involved with it, and I wish I could have done a better job on it, but it's like a lot of things you do. You think, oh boy, I'd rather do it now. I'm more qualified than I was back then. It's like, I'd like to have a second chance at
that. See, now here's a few that I'm not sure you're involved with, really.
No, I'm not. Yeah, not that I know of.
Yeah.
And organizing was an interesting group. I had a Art Hillary was mostly now out here on piano, but he played organ with us. And Johnny Kirkwood, an old time drummer, they both passed. There we go again. but Johnny actually was I don't know if he was his only teacher, but he was Billy Higgins' first teacher. And this is people lived in Watts and everything.
I remember Johnny. He was outstanding drummer.
He played with Louis Jordan too at one time. A lot of people.
Yeah.
And at any rate, we had a trio, Johnny on drums, and Johnny was a good organizer too. So he helped with the group a lot, like just concepts we were going to do. And Art was a pleasure to play with. And we had Plaz Johnson with us quite a lot.
Oh, good.
Another guy named Wilbur Brown. And then I think Sam Most with this, but
Wilbur Brown, yeah.
But the recording is Plaz Johnson, and Plaz really liked this record. I think that he was really at home with Johnny and Art, and I really think he liked the way Johnny played for his style.
Yeah.
And then I know Ernie Andrews really liked Johnny too, the way he.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a very special group for me at that time. When did it come out? 97. Yeah, that looks right.
And Art was he was like such a quiet kind of guy.
Yeah, he was actually misunderstood by some people, because some people met him and they thought he was standoffish. He was just very quiet,
Yeah, very.
But if he relaxed around you, he really opened up. We had a lot of great conversations. Yeah.
Is Whistle Stop yours?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Oh, Blue Capers, that's an interesting thing. The cover's by John Hurd. We just saw John Hurd's wife. And I think John is some kind of facility, like, I don't know what he has, but I'm in North Hollywood, and John and his wife live down the street.
Yeah, yeah.
And I had forgotten how close they were because I moved around so much. But I guess his wife said he's in some kind of a home right now. So we wish him well.
Yeah, because Julie Kelly and I were just talking about him. We were wondering, because she's, left messages, and
right.
I remember where they live, but yeah, I was thinking of swinging by, and
But he's not there. She is, but unfortunately, but Blue Capers was this time Art on piano, Johnny on drums, and John Hurd on bass.
Oh,
yes, that was nice. Yeah,
that's cool. John was on my first record on one song.
I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then Turn
is an interesting group. A pianist friend of mine who lives in Riverside, we knew each other in Hawaii, Jimmy Dykes. We talked about forming a different group, and we had this group for years. What year did that come out? 200. Okay. We had a group for years, and we decided to do something. He has a very strong classical background. I had just started to study arranging formally with the Spud course and all that I mentioned earlier. But what happened is we decided to use, instead of a traditional big band, it's what you'd call a woodwind quintet, a brass quintet, and a rhythm section. So it ended up being 13 people, but with the woodwinds of bassoon and oboe and all that, and then of course French horn and tuba. So it was a very interesting, and people liked the group. They would come out and see it because it was so different. You didn't have, oh, there's another big band, So I kind of learned to write backwards first. I sort of learned to write chamber music first, and then into jazz big band, kind of completely backwards. But that's okay. But that's what that first album is. And of course, the group was very young. I wish we had actually recorded it later. But like everything else I do, I'd rather do it today than, 20 years ago. You know what I mean? I just feel now would be the time. And then Laura Day, I guess I played on that. She's out in Minnesota, and I think I played a couple things on her album in Minnesota. Yeah, I do remember. Yeah. And I don't know about that other one, Churchill. Joel Penner.
Oh, you were probably on Melody's record.
Oh, I was. Yeah, I forgot what that was. I don't know what I can't remember. I think we did it in Orange County. I do remember now. Lou Matthews was on it, I believe.
She was an interesting person,
She had a very low voice for a woman.
Yeah, yeah.
The guy's keys, yeah. I hope she's still around. I really don't know. Yeah.
Me too. I don't know either. And Joel Penner, who's that?
Well, Joel Penner was an acupuncture. He's, not Asian, but he's an acupuncture doctor. He passed away. Another one. but he was a trumpet player, but he made his living as a acupuncture guy. And he had, at the time, his home and office was in Burbank. I think he moved. Well, I know he moved after that, but we used to rehearse over there. Oh, probably about 2000, 1999, 2000. And I think we did about 2 or 3 recordings with him, but they're nice arrangements. It's a little overarranged for a small band. It's like, that's what he wanted, but it's like treating a small band like a big band, but there's not enough freedom in it. You know what I mean? It's pretty, but it is what it is. But I give Joel credit for having a good vision.
I remember him vaguely, but I
Yeah,
wasn't really
nice
involved.
guy, nice guy.
Here's you doing Gentle Rain.
Yeah, that was an interesting recording. We did it. I usually used to go to Andy Waterman in the old days, and
Yeah.
he wasn't available, so we went to a studio in, I think, I'll think of his name in a minute, but a studio up there in Reseda, and we did it, and it was some trio with Harvey Newmark and Jack LeCompte, but then a few cuts were Ross Tompkins and a few cuts were Marty Harris. And I believe that was, no, we did another recording with Marty for a singer later, Gracie Speranza. But this was Ross's last record date, as far as I know.
Oh.
There might have been one more after that, but I don't think so. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
you
I
recorded.
forget. Let's see. He and I did a
When did you do yours?
recording. Yeah, but I can't remember the date. I'd have to look it up. But yeah,
Is it like after 2006, you think, or might be?
I'll try and look it up for a second because
Don't worry, it's okay. You'll find it later.
yeah, Cathy Segal-Garcia. It should be on my music page. Like, let's see. Where is it? 1997.
Oh, it's that far back. I thought it was later. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so okay, so that was fun. And then Beautiful Friendship, was
Yeah,
that
that was I think, is that before?
2008?
Yeah, that I think Marty played on that one. But it was a lot of trio. I kind of like to use piano and then don't use it, both ways.
Yeah.
Being a guitarist, I feel I work well with piano because I give them a lot of room. A lot of times I've heard bands and the guitarist is too loud when they're comping, or you know what I mean, getting in the way.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I like not using the piano because then I have complete harmonic freedom.
Yeah.
But then when I do have it, I like playing off of somebody. It's like playing off of another voice, so to speak. So yeah, that has trio and quartet. And then our later ones should be was there let's go to, if we can find the latest one, it's called Serenade to Highland Park. If not, it's okay, don't worry, I can tell
Not
you.
on this. Yeah, this one, I mean, there's another page to find, but
Try Mid-Century Modern. That's an interesting group.
in Fourth Stream and that Mid-Century Autumn.
Yeah, that's a trio in the desert, which we still play together, different places. Mid-Century Modern is Tim Pleasant on drums and Larry Holloway on bass, who Larry, I think, used to be in, well, a lot of places, Seattle for a long time. And then Tim was all over New York, but everybody knows him from LA. But so they're in the desert. So I work with them pretty much every week somewhere. And that's Tim Pleasant and Larry Holloway.
And Tim Pleasant, I just have to say, is
Great.
a hidden treasure guy.
Yeah, I mean, Chuck Burkoffer loves his playing. He always tells me he loves Tim's playing, So that's quite a compliment.
Cool. So this page is just a different page on All Music, and it lists the label too. So that's kind of cool,
Yeah, Fourth String was one we did with that group I told you about with the two quintets, but Fourth String is go down two more. That has strings on it too.
Uh-huh.
So that was interesting.
You've done a lot.
But the latest one was funny. We were playing at Edward Mills in Pasadena. This guy comes up and said, I think he had a few drinks. He said, "Look, I got some free studio time." I said, "Well, let me hear something from the studio." And it sounded great. And it's a guy called Tim Moore, and he has a studio in Highland Park. And we get like free studio time. Nothing wrong with that. So that just came out. And there's two more coming out. I don't usually do them this close together, but when you start something rolling, you say, let's get it done. Somebody may pass away. So it sounds funny, but it's true. Or somebody may move away, or next thing you know, they're too busy. Like some of the engineers are too busy to take you in. It happens all the time. Tally Sherwood gets really busy, for example,
Oh yeah, totally.
So anyway, we did one with the octet I just mentioned. And it's 4 horns and 4 rhythm. And then I did one with the guys I used to play with, who luckily are still alive, John Clayton and Jeff Hamilton. And we used piano on that one, Tamir. And that's probably not going to come out till May. And the octet will probably come out in late February. But anyway, that's the new ones. And I'm just glad to do these things. And I don't like shove them all in the same year, but it just seems like once we got the ball rolling, let's finish this. Let's not procrastinate, because anything can happen, so.
I know what you mean. I've been doing that too with the help of my friend.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that's how I feel too. If it's here, it's going high. And
Let's
so
do it.
you have to go for it, because
And I want to get it off my plate. I don't want it hanging on there. And now I can relax because I can just do my studies and I don't have to worry about another recording. And, I'm done for next year. I got 2 coming out, great, get it over with. A lot of work, as you know, it's not easy,
definitely. Let's see. So, you have, and Francesca also put your website up, and
Good.
your discography is on that too.
Yeah.
Now I have a friend, a guitarist named Taylor Hatch. I don't know if you guys
Know the name, I think. Yeah.
and he said, out of the many records you've done, is there one that was the most influential to you, and if so, what about it was memorable?
Great question, Taylor. Well, what I would say is, I'm repeating myself a little bit. Luckily, I think I first did a recording in the late 70s, a couple of them, like maybe around 78, 79, I think 79. So figure from 1980 on. So how many years is that? That's too long. That's 40 years.
Yeah.
But I don't really like the early ones because I feel like my student, I feel like I don't, luckily I'm a late bloomer. It's like, what did they say? The tortoise won the race. Here's the rabbit running and the tortoise takes his time chipping away at it, learn a little bit at a time. That's what I feel like, which is, since I'm so impatient, that's okay. But I guess what I'm saying is I like the latest one always. So for me, it would be right now Highland Park, because I just feel like everything we shoot for, in my case, studying composition has been a big thing. I don't want to bore everybody with this, but what I did is, as a kid, I was about 13, I actually picked up the trombone in school and the guitar, and it was kind of dumb to try to learn 2 instruments, but the trombone fell by the wayside. But what it did is it got me to play in an orchestra and a big band, and I heard those inner parts. Also, it taught me to breathe, just like Sinatra with Tommy Dorsey, that instrument, you must breathe. So I feel I learned something from it, even though that instrument fell away from me, which one day I should pick up again. But it's a good instrument for a writer because you're hearing all those inner parts. It's really nice. And sitting in the orchestra was a very valuable experience. It's hard to do that if you play guitar, because they do now, but I'm talking about part of the original thing.
Yeah.
Wind ensembles, orchestra with strings, the whole thing.
Not to mention the big band. My dad was like, he always would say, which I was like, oh, Dad. Anyway, but he was old school. Ching, ching, ching.
Oh, he played guitar. I didn't know that.
No, he played sax.
Oh, really?
But he led big bands, and that's what he wanted to hear from the guitar. Ching, 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 ching. And that's like so old school, and.
Well, I played with a lot of traditional guys, luckily, and I learned a lot. That's like going to school as well. And as you know, there was a big movement, I think, when I came out here in the 80s, as you can probably remember, where everybody wanted to recapture these songs from the 20s, which are great songs written, way, way back. And I call it trad jazz, traditional jazz. A lot of people call it Dixieland, but you know what I'm talking about. It's like the original form. And even Herb Ellis used to always say, learn the roots. But anyway, I think that it's just taking back to Taylor's question. I would rather have what I'm doing now than what I did 10 years ago. I just feel like, I've learned more. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Some people might prefer the old stuff more, but I just feel like that's my.
What about, okay, let's talk about some guitar players. Charlie Christensen?
Yeah, Charlie Christian was really interesting because
Oh, Christian, not Christensen.
oh, Christian, he was from Oklahoma. I knew some people that knew the family, guy in Hawaii, Q Martin, and I said, "You kidding? You knew Charlie's?" He said, "Oh yeah, we knew who he was, and we knew his family and everything." And of course, Georgie Auld I ran into, who knew him, and some other people. He's a very interesting guy. He died from tuberculosis when he was about 24. And so he probably would have had a more extensive career. He's kind of the beginning of the jazz guitar, just like George Barnes and Lonnie Johnson and Carl Kress, Dick McDonough. I like all those trad players because they've got such an earthy sound in the phrasing, you know. And Charlie, I would say the difference between him and Django Reinhardt, you know, it's both old style guitar, but Charlie sort of had that Lester Young feel to his
Yeah.
yeah. And then as brilliant as Django was with his injury and all that, he basically kind of played jazz with a French accent, which isn't so bad, but like Johnny Kirkwood would say, there's just a difference. You have to understand the
Yeah.
difference. Because a lot of
Yeah.
people think it's all the same, you know, it's
Yeah.
not. There's a difference in sound and culture.
Yeah.
And culture does, even today, it influences everything. It's a lot different, some of the sounds you hear because of the times we're in, you know.
So moving from era to era.
Yes.
So because I was really impressed when I first heard Charlie. I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow,
Swings hard. Swings hard. Yeah.
yeah, and he kind of had a foot over the line, you know, the boundary of ages or something. So moving on into the next age, who would have been a few of your favorites?
Well, some guys I got to know were Barney Kessel. He was there, and he was a friend of Charlie's. He also talked about him.
Herb Ellis.
Herb Ellis was a little bit later, but yeah, definitely Herb was a good friend, and I got to learn a lot from him and Barney just by hanging out. I remember Herb would come through Hawaii, and I'd visit with him. Johnny Smith, I got to know. Now, Johnny Smith was really one of my favorites, even though he's not in the Charlie Christian bag. And you mentioned guitar. I wanted to say with Charlie Christian, one of the interesting things is he played a lot of downstrokes. It's got that feel. It's a different than the down and up, da 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 da. It's do da da da. You know, so it's a different feel. Johnny Smith, however, was very articulated, almost like classic guitar with a pick. And he had played no fingerstyle. Today, everybody plays a lot of fingerstyle with the pick, and there's a lot of ways to do that. But Johnny Smith, I loved, even though he came around probably the late 40s after Charlie Christian. He was such a great sound and great harmonically, you know, and I got to know him a little bit. And then later on, you know, I got to meet Kenny Burrell and Joe Pass visited with us, and like you said, Herb Ellis.
What about Wes Montgomery?
I never met him. I met his two brothers. I met Monk in Vegas, and I met Buddy in San Francisco. But Wes was great. In fact, I have an instrument. It was Joe Pass's guitar. It's an album he used on Catch Me. It's an octave lower. They call it bass guitar, which is different than the electric bass. It's a guitar player's octave lower, which is like really baritone guitar. But Wes played it on an album. He did Tune Up and Body and Soul. I think it's Moving Along. I forget. We can always look it up later, or somebody can do it in the chat room. I have the instrument. It's great. And I've been using it sometimes because they need a bass player, and they said, well, could you play that? I said, okay, I'll do it. I've been doing some gigs on it, you know, so it's kind of fun. It's when you solo, it's an octave lower. It's weird.
Wow, interesting. Okay, so moving on, I guess would gosh, his name just went out of my head. He played with Bill Evans.
Jim Hall, fantastic. I remember.
Hall, yeah.
Yeah, I remember meeting Jim, and very nice guy, very, very shy and quiet, but a great sense of humor. And to me, he was very interesting. Like the stuff he did with Bill, what I liked is he plays very percussive. And I saw him do that with his own group, Jim. Yeah. And they always talk about his solos and his very brilliant guy, and very interesting. And here's another thing, because I actually have some similar things, because I've worked with Buddy Collette a lot, and he started with Chico Hamilton, and I worked with Buddy Collette a lot. I worked a couple of times with Fred Katz, and Carson Smith I knew in Vegas, so we played together a lot. That's Putter's brother. So this is all the Jim Hall thing from the beginning, you know. And then I did play with Chico Hamilton once. He was a little strange, I have to tell you. Everybody knew that. Strange guy, but very creative, though. I mean, a very great group, that group they had in the 50s, you know. That was like chamber music, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember doing a takedown of that duo. I know they have at least one, the duo record between Jim Hall and
I think they have
Bill
two,
Evans.
intermodulation, and I forget what the second one's called. They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind because I could hear what they were doing when I was
Right.
listening. And when I did the takedown, that was just dramatically different. It was like, I just thought I would never think like that. That is
That's what's
that is
different
so
is, yeah.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, they able to make the music flow. It's not, and
Yeah.
they didn't try to control everything. That's the other thing, micromanaging. I learned that in music. Show business, they try to control everything. It's like they want to hear the exact
Yeah.
intro every time, sometimes the same solo. But the thing is, I never had patience for transcribing. And usually
Yeah.
you take downs. I don't know how you have patience for that. It drives me nuts. Is that a B or a B flat, or is that a C or a, it's like, oh, come on. It drives me mad. I don't know. I have to hire you to do the takedowns.
Well, now of course they have. I haven't used it for this purpose, but they have the amazing slow downer.
I tried that once. It really works easy. I didn't really do it, but I listened. I said, God, I can hear exactly what it is. It's so pretty
But
good.
even working it out, I remember when I was in college and I worked out stuff like the red top and
Oh, yeah,
all those fast blues with lyrics
of
and
course.
the lines. I would first, it was always so interesting. When I first listened to a line, I thought, there is no way I'm going to
Sure.
understand that. Then I listened again. I heard one note, I listened
I
again,
know. I'm going crazy. While you're doing that, I'm going nuts. I'm ready for a straight jacket now.
but it actually does work.
It
But
does.
you really have to have patience. And as you said
That's
before,
what I don't have.
yeah.
No, I read a book on it. I'm a little better than I used to be. Actually, what you could do is like just chip away at it and get one note at a time. And eventually,
Yeah.
and let's face it, some people, even in the classical field, don't agree. No, that's an A flat. No, that's an A. Somebody's gonna tell you, no, that note is not, it. So you get as close as you can. Nothing's
Yeah.
anyway,
And the cool thing about it too is that once you spend the time doing it, you know that music.
Well, that's the real advantage of that. Yeah, you got it memorized. It's like if you're reading something all the time, you don't know it. But if you put the music away and try to remember how it goes, the hardest thing for me is not the changes, which I really like to fool around with, but is remembering the exact melody, even if you change it. Like, how is it exactly written? Because once you start fooling around with improvisation, sometimes the melody goes south. It's like you're not close to the original melody. And I don't mind changing it where, like, okay, it happens all the time on record. Sinatra would change a note, you know, uh, that's fine, but he knew he was changing it most of the time. He was pretty sure but a lot of times I'm trying to remember, how's the darn original melody go? That's that thing.
That's so true. That's definitely one thing that comes up as you're moving along and
Yeah.
getting the music. Roland wants to know what you thought of Emily Remler.
Oh, I got to know her a little bit, not too much. She had passed away pretty early. I really felt she played well. I felt like she was like Charlie Christian. She was going to go on to better things. I think she was like a sort of a younger player when she started. And that's part of what I was saying earlier is they try to catch everybody. She wasn't 19, but you know what I mean? They try to catch everybody at 19.
Yeah.
I would rather hear them a little later when they've matured and grown, because to me, there's a lot of things to learn, especially on the guitar, harmonically and, conceptually like a composer. So it takes more experience, I think, so I would have liked to see where she was gonna go, you know what I mean? Because
Uh-huh.
she was a new player at the time to me. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Believe
Yeah.
me. I know
Yeah.
you teach. There's nothing wrong with new, but a lot of times when they've been around longer, it's more into fruition, things.
Yeah, yeah. Bill Marcus just joined.
Oh, good. Yeah. Hello,
Yeah,
Billy.
I actually played with him this weekend. It was great.
Seen him in
Fun.
years.
Yeah.
Haven't
Yeah.
seen anybody in years.
He looks, I thought he looked more like his brother. Did you ever meet his brother? Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Bill looked more like his brother now that
Yeah.
he's growing older.
Wow.
So Dan found the Jack Sheldon record. Let's see.
Oh, great.
But
Beautiful.
I don't know if it's online, but even if it is,
Sure.
Oh yeah, you can vinyl and CD. So I'll send you
Okay.
this link so that you will have it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Dan finds stuff. He's good.
Great.
Yeah, Doug Mac. Okay. And oh, um, just sending this to
Appreciate
you.
that. Thank you. Yeah, I need to have a copy. I don't know what happened. I moved around so much, and the CDs are probably it's in a box with something else, or it's just once again I have to dig through all the files, which I probably have to do anyway. But
And you know who else is here?
who else?
Ed Bennett.
Oh, I haven't heard of him. He went to Portland.
Yeah, I interviewed him a few weeks ago.
Oh, that's great. Hello,
Yeah.
Ed.
You know who I spoke to yesterday? Zan Stewart.
Oh my God, how's Zan doing? He's back east. I think he's playing tenor again, isn't he?
Actually, he's up north now.
Oh, okay.
And he's playing some tenor and still writing, and he has a really good attitude.
Great.
And yeah, it was really nice to speak with him.
When you say north, you mean like San Francisco or Seattle or something?
Let's see. He's in I think it's, let's see, what is it called? Let me just see. He is in Richmond.
That's California, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
Up north.
Richmond is, let's see, let me see. I'll look at my maps. Because otherwise I won't know. Let's see. Yes, thank you. And can I just, no, I don't have to have traffic. Where is it? What did I say it was called? Richmond.
Richmond. Yeah, it's probably up by Modesto or somewhere, isn't it? I thought it was. I don't know.
It's above Berkeley.
Oh, really? That far? Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So
There's
there you
probably
go.
like other Richmonds, like Arizona or something too. I would think.
Oh
there
yeah,
would
and
be, but
Virginia. Richmond, Virginia is a big one.
there you go. Yeah, there you go. But
Let's hear some music, okay?
it
So
sounds good to me.
now we could hear, I know you said like something new. Oh, there's the Jack Sheldon thing. Let me get out of there. So Doug MacDonald guitar. And we could either do this or we can listen to your record probably. I don't think
How about the view of the city? I don't know why the latest ones are not up there, but we'll get them all up. There's some new. The Coachella Valley's not up. Well, no, you know what? Try the Toluca Lake Jazz with Harvey. That'd be nice if you don't mind. Or no, that's okay. View of the city. I'm sorry. That'd be View of the City's down a couple.
Okay, now this is your PR piece. Is that what you want?
Yeah. It's not a tune, huh?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. It's okay. We'll check it out anyway.
Okay, so it's like a PR thing. That's okay. Oh, I see. One, two, three, four.
But it's cool. It's a cool thing to watch.
Okay.
You weren't gray there, man.
Oh, yeah. All of a sudden it went gray or whatever. Yeah, that's the studio in Astoria, Queens. I forget the name of it, Samurai or something.
Oh, nice,
Interesting
nice
place.
studio.
Yeah, yeah, nice looking place. The engineer is kind of renowned, Catherine Miller.
Oh,
There's the tuner on the guitar, the little clip. I think Steve played with Shirley Horn a lot, if I'm not mistaken. I'm pretty sure he did.
come on, keep going.
It must have stopped. That's an old one.
Quite the nice studio.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting visually, and the engineer was very good. It was well, you've been in the studio. Some days feel different than others. It's just a weird kind of thing. How it's a whole other moment, whatever that means.
Yeah, I know. I'm not, to tell the truth, I'm really not a fan of the studio. I mean, I know it has to be done and there are good things to do in it, but it's really a different animal. And for singing, the headphone thing and it's really a lot of work to not be internalized about listening to yourself, for a singer anyway. And it's
no, it's the same thing with me. I use one headphone like this a lot of times so I can hear the room.
Yeah.
And when I pick or finger style or pick, it sounds like a different touch. It doesn't sound like live. It's like a different view. It's like backwards. It's weird. It's like same thing. I had to deal with it. So now I just say, well, the heck with it. I'll just live with it. But it's a different feeling. It's not like playing a gig. It's strange. And then if you play too careful, it's sterile. And if you play too adventuresome, it's sloppy. So what are you gonna do?
I know. I always tell the people I'm producing or my students, I always say, look, you can move a phrase, you can tune up, you can change the tone, you cannot change feeling.
No, you can't.
That's really the thing to concentrate on, and then the rest can be moved. And I remember I used to feel bad about tuning, and it was like, and the engineers kept saying, it's the studio, it's okay. It's just it's a different thing,
It's a whole different thing. And yet live is nice, except you don't have that control you'd have in the studio where you can really, really EQ everything and balance it. Where live, anything can happen. The cymbals could be too loud or too soft. So then you're at the mercy of all that. And there's only so much you can do. Don put out several live albums, and I finally talked him out of it. I said, well, let's go to the studio the next couple of times because I can just control it better. I can't do it out live. And live there's so much to do. There could be feedback from the mics. It could be, you're stuck, it's hard. But in the studio, at least you can say, hey, we need another take, or we need to fix this or whatever, and there's nothing wrong with that because you want the best product you can have.
Yeah. I did one live record, Live at the Blue Whale with this group called that I call The Moment with um, Gary Fukushima on keyboard,
Yeah.
Brad Dutz on percussion, Jeff Richmond on
I
guitar,
remember. I
and
remember.
Chuck Manning on tenor. And
Of course.
it actually came out really good, but we got Wayne Cook to record it live. And speaking of what's his name, the guitar player you mentioned who taught at UCLA, Kenny Burrell. So he was
Thank you, bro.
the only guy that Kenny Burrell ever used
Used.
to
Yeah.
record the band live.
That makes a
Yes.
difference. Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing. Yeah. I just, I have a mixed opinion about it. The rawness of it is great because it's the moment.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're going for it more because it's live.
Yeah.
But then again, there's that element of the live problems, which
Yeah.
could be, if, like you say, you got the wrong guy, you're in trouble, you know. And then they can fix more things electronically than they used to be able to. You know, they
Yeah.
can really put it, so that part's good. But anyway, it's just studios, I think, better shot. I think so, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. So yeah, I wanted to get back to the some of your more admired guitar players.
Yes.
I mean, you know, I don't know if we ever talked about this, but I'm actually a real guitar person.
I
I just
didn't know that.
I've always loved guitar, and I played and recorded with Joe DiOrio, and of course
Sure, I remember Joe. Yeah.
Ted Green and Larry Koontz, and
Right.
I mean, I love guitar, and I love singing with guitar because there's something about where it sits in tonality that my voice feels very comfortable with,
Why don't
So
you teach that to a lot of showbiz singers that don't know that? They always have
believe
to
me,
have
I keep trying.
they have a pianist who's, like Mark Murphy was at the bakery, and he told Aubrey Tadman, a mutual friend of ours, he said, I like this piano player, but he's building a house under me. In other words, he's so busy, and I don't mean to put piano down. I love it. You know what I mean? We know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
But I'm just saying this guy was very busy behind Mark Murphy, who's already going out as you could go as a singer. I don't know anybody that goes that far out as he did.
Yeah.
And not every tune, but you know how certain things. He sang just in time, and I thought,
Yeah.
oh my God, it sounds like a real avant-garde performance. But it was great. He knew what he was doing. He knew how to do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But right, but the thing is that I guess for the most part, the piano player was like playing so much. So a lot of singers,
They depend on that.
yeah, and if you give them a note on the guitar, they're not hearing it like they hear it on the piano. And I understand that. It's like they're not used to flowing with something different. It's just like if a vibraphone player or a harp gave you a note, they're not, oh, yeah, I'm not used to hearing it that way. Well,
Yeah.
listen, but no, it's cool. I mean, I certainly get it. It's not a put down. It's just that they're not familiar with like
Yeah. Yeah. Well, speaking of the guitar players, so moving up in years. So
Right.
like, I don't know, the 70s guitar players, who did you listen to from that period?
Well, what happened to me is I mentioned Herb Ellis earlier, who's a late 40s, early 50s guy up until when he passed away. Like what I learned from him, which I kind of knew, but when you around an older player, like you saying, you pick up some good points. And he said that like most guitar players, he appreciated, unless it was something that wasn't making it, and I feel the same way. I appreciate, all styles. I actually never mentioned, but I actually started with blues guitar, because I didn't know I was playing the trombone, and not to bore people with the details, and the guitar. And, I heard all the contemporary music, and it was like Herb would say at the beginning, you do nondescript music. You're not sure what you're doing, should I do classical, should I do pop, should I jazz? But I like blues guitar because we had a family friend that was into that. And I met BB King a couple of times. I was working with some of his musicians in Vegas, and he came to hear us at the Four Queens. And I said, I got to tell you, your sound on that, I didn't know the name of the title at the time, but it's called Blues is King on ABC Paramount. And I said, your tone on that one to me really captured you. Where other albums it does, everybody says Live at the Regal, but so I kind of started with that at first, but I'm not a singer. So I figured, blues guitar players usually sing. They're not strictly instrumentalists. And it made sense for me because I had been listening to the stuff for the trombone too. Maybe I should get into more of a, hate to say serious music, but in a sense.
Yeah.
And so jazz became the thing because you could improvise like you do on the blues.
Yeah.
It became harmonically more interesting. So for me, it was like, oh, okay, I see. This seems like a natural. I have friends from school said, how come you don't play blues anymore? I said, well, we do, but it's jazz blues. It's got more harmony. There's a big difference between the Delta blues and the New Orleans blues. Like one goes to the minor third right away, and the other one stays on the major third, then goes to the minor third. So you get a difference in style. And I said, that's kind of what happened is for me. And then getting into the writing is sort of like stepping into the classical world, so it's not a thing where this music's better than that, but it gets you more involved in the elements, and I had to study conducting with Jack Fearman to make this happen because like he used to say at somebody's rehearsal, Jack Fearman, let me show you what you wrote. He would conduct the rubato stuff, and you go, oh my God, listen to that. Because, if something's rubato, it's got to be conducted. And, it's an endless field. You can spend your whole life learning that, but you learn what you can,
Yeah.
Anyway, I didn't mean to get off the subject, but getting back to guitars, I appreciate all the guitar players, even the early blues guys. I mean, the guys today that do that, that strictly blues. And the rock guys, I like them. I just don't want to necessarily play it,
Yeah, but so from the 70s and later,
Right.
were you listening to Demiola, or were you listening to John Scofield, or those guys?
The only thing I found with those guys, I've heard them in person. No, not Al, but I heard John a bunch of times, and I met him once. For me, I didn't hear a lot of groove in some of it. And that was my complaint to myself, but it wasn't something I was willing to share with people. But a lot of it, what I did miss from traditional jazz to fusion, if you want to call it that, or in the early days, rock jazz, a lot of times I didn't hear that groove. It doesn't have to be swing. It can be a rock groove or blues groove or eighth note groove or Latin, samba. But a lot of times I didn't feel this in it as much to me. Like Wes used to do that to Pat Martino. Like, you got to put more heart into it. The early days, Pat was all ta-da-da-da-da-da. Then he evolved into, that's probably a personal thing to share, but still, that for me, that was the honest thing to answer your question. Some of the modern guys, I do like to listen to them, and I will listen to them. And if I can, I'll go see them play in person, but I didn't always get the emotional side that I would get if I heard, Johnny Smith play a ballad or something, or Wes, of course, is just,
Well, it's kind of like comparing to like Charlie Hayden with, some major like Ray Brown or something.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, that's hard.
Yeah, it's great listening to Charlie Hayden, but
Sure it is.
he doesn't groove like Ray Brown does,
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the thing, and that's the truth, and that's exactly, you nailed the point. That's what I was talking about, and it's not a judgmental thing.
Right.
Just that for me, it's not moving me. It's just like when you hear Billie Holiday sing, maybe not a lot of technique there, but she's really got this going, and then you hear some other singer that's technically great, going up 3 octaves.
Well, I actually feel that way about myself too. I mean, without trying to get in my own way, because I have to be what I am.
Of course.
But sometimes I'll listen and I'll go, wow, I'm not grooving. I'm heady. I'm too heady, and
well, you're probably your own worst critic. You're probably judgmental of yourself, like we all are. That's why I don't like to listen to anything back. I do, but you have to. You got to listen to it being mixed, and you have to listen to it to see, but yeah, I have the same problem. I don't like to be my own player and also my own critic. It's really too hard. It's hard to separate it,
Yeah.
Try to split the difference. And I think the real thing that you were talking about, Charlie Hayden to Ray Brown, John Scofield to Herb Ellis, it's comparisons are bad. I really think they are. Yeah. And one of the things I complain about, and I used to tell this to a lot of our friends around town that have passed away, like Marty Harris and a lot of these people, I said, look, you're saying that like so-and-so is the best drummer, so-and-so is the best sax player. I said, Comparisons are bad. I like Frank Sinatra, but I'll be very honest with you, I'm tired of hearing his name. I don't want one singer. I don't want one drummer. I don't want one actor. Like some people say, oh, Robert De Niro, this. Yeah, that's fine, but there's other people. I mean, obviously there's Joe Pesci. You know what I'm saying? And there's other, as an example.
Yeah.
So this thing of one person, I'm really tired of it. There's not one guitar player.
Yeah.
But they get into this thing. It's like, oh, there's one person. It's like, so that would be like saying after Bach, then there's no Ravel or Debussy. It's over. It's not over.
Yeah. Hey, so I have a question. I ask this from time to time because I'm curious. I've done a lot of workshops, right? I've held a lot of workshops and also invited other people in to do them. But the one interesting thing to me is, how do you teach about groove? How do you describe what groove is to people? I mean, of course, each student is different, right? They're listening in a different way and they need different things. So you can communicate the idea of groove or whatever in a different way to each person. But overall, how do you describe groove to people?
Well, I think in the classical field, they have the same issue. If someone's listening once again to a Bach thing, somebody's going to play it perfectly, but it's cold. It's cold music. And you don't want cold music, because if you listen to the better classical recordings, you feel the emotion,
Yeah.
If you hear something by Debussy, if it's played right, oh my gosh, it really moves you, the beautiful sounds.
Yeah.
So like Steve Allen was on one of his TV shows once, and his wife, I think, was one of the Meadows. Is it Audrey or, whichever one.
I can't remember. Yeah.
And they were talking about singing, and she's a singer. And I think the other sister is a singer and a comedian. I don't know what, but obviously Steve is a comedian.
Yeah.
And he says, well, how do you describe this? And then they said, oh, you know what it is? It's emotion. Because they were talking about Judy Garland, what made her so great. A lot of it is the emotion you feel,
Yeah.
So that's what it has to. And I remember learning conducting, and a trumpet player friend said, well, you know what? I talked to Jack. He said, you got to get more of the emotion in the hands. You can't just be like a robot, you got to like body language, like if the passage is soft or heavy, you know what I mean? It's like that translates. So that's, I think, the possible way is to say, and some people, as you know, the time is a problem. You know what I mean? They're doing music, but the meter is an issue with some people. So there are certain things that are very hard to hone in on. And we don't always know how to fix that. Like you said, there's not a great way. I think the way to describe it is emotion, but it's not a style, because it could be a classical thing, it could be a rock thing, it could be country music, whatever. But there's a certain emotion when you hear it, you can recognize it, So I think that's the issue. And then the thing with the time, that's a big factor. And I don't know really how to fix that either. Like if someone is having trouble, like the eighth notes are not right, or they could be, and for everybody, you have to, maybe sometimes if you're reading music, you got to over concentrate, unfortunately, where if you're just performing, you don't have to think as much. But there's times when you have to be more rigid about what you're doing, brutally, so I'm not sure how to fix that either. You've had students that have a meter problem, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. And actually, now that we're talking about it, it's kind of the same issue, right?
I think so. It is. I think it's something to do
to your insides, because I really do believe everybody is musical. Everybody has good time. Everybody has a groove, but they get distracted, or their opinions about themselves, which have come from Lord knows where, various sources, right? And it's like they're blocks, and so to get inside to the core is the important thing. And it's very challenging to do that, to lead somebody there, and also just to go there, if you're not, if you've been blocked,
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I hadn't quite expressed it that way. It looks like a block because, like if you have a student that has a meter issue, they're talking in time. Their sentences and they're talking with emotion. They're
right.
I'm tired. I'm really stressed. Or I'm really happy. Or I love this music. I don't like this music. Either way, there's all kinds of emotions, and they're basically speaking of with a certain meter to their and also their pitch. You notice that with the pitch is a thing with so they're especially if somebody's speaking in Spanish or something, it's very rhythmic, very very musical. so it's got to be a blockage, like you say. Maybe that's what it is. It's a nervousness where I know sometimes I've been snow blinded where for some reason I don't know what happened, but I can't count. I can't hear. You ever get that weird? It's a weird zone you're in, like another dimension. I'm not hearing anything. I'm not. And so like, let me get myself out of hypnosis and get back because you're frozen, and maybe that's what happens. It's like a deer with a headlights on him. Could be. I don't know.
Yeah. Taylor has a few good questions. Sorry, Taylor, I waited.
Oh, that's great.
We were in the
zone.
In your practice, what has helped you the most with broadening your sense of counterpoint and working on intervallic practice? Has it always been just choosing 2 to 4 notes to see how many possible ways you can play one chord?
Well, the counterpoint, which I'm just reviewing in the studies again 20 years later, and I've been writing all this time. So one of the things I've gained is experience from the first time I took the course till now, 20 years later, teaching it to myself, because both teachers are dead. So. No, but the thing is, Bud, what's this mean? David, what? No. But anyway, the counterpoint, you want to keep it as simple as possible. Just think of 2 lines. If you're on the guitar, writing is different because you could have a whole band. But for a guitar, what I would do is make everything 2 lines. If nothing else, like beginning classical guitar, have a bass note and a melody note. And if you can find a way to grab both things or stagger them if you have to play with the pick, but somehow hide the pick. I put it, I don't have one here, I have to pull one out, but I put it in here. And what I do is I just play the low note and the top note. Now, either one can move. Obviously, the most primary thing that's going to move is the melody, because that's traditionally the notes are on top. So you hold this note down and you move the high notes. And then I guess I should demonstrate it, or hold the treble note down and move the bass notes. The bass isn't necessarily a bass part, but it's lower. So if you just think 2 lines for counterpoint, and give them my email if you want, I can discuss it with them later. I really enjoy talk about guitarists. I like talking about this with them because it's very interesting, too. So I'd be glad to share some ideas with him.
Okay, cool. He always asks good questions.
Beautiful.
Here's another one. Assuming you've played lots of duo gigs,
Right.
as a chordal player, what are some priorities that you apply when you're accompanying a vocalist versus a pianist? Are you always focusing on making the guitar sound like a different instrument?
Well, for me, no, I want it to sound like a guitar. I don't want to imitate the piano, but a lot of times you can't tell. Sometimes it's so far in the back. Was that a guitar chord or a piano chord or electric piano? It depends on how it's mixed. You've heard that too. It's like, throughout the whole thing you can tell, but like for one chord, you're going, what was that? Was that the guitar, or the electric piano, or the acoustic piano, or what was it? But I think the idea is simplicity, because once again, one of the problems, especially if you're working with a pianist, I let them go to town most of the time. And if all the good guys you and I have played with, once I start doing chordal stuff, they pull back. And once I hear them, then I pull back. So it's a give and take of listening. And I have to say, most of the better players in town do that instinctively. All of them, they just know what to do, And it's the same thing with the singer. I don't think you should get in the singer's way, let them do it and just fill in where there's a hole, just stick yourself in there. But busyness is never that great unless it's your own solo and go to town.
Right. Actually, his teacher is Charlie Shoemaker.
Oh, fantastic. I play with Charlie once in a while. He's on one of our recordings at live at the what's the name of it?
Plays up there.
Yeah, it was done down here in LAX. One of Don's live recordings that we were talking about. Horrendous live conditions, but Charlie's on that. And it's that one called Live at Hangar 18, the Tarmac Ensemble or something like that. Anyway, sorry, I don't remember.
Clever, very clever.
Yeah.
My friend Michael Diak, he said, being isolated as a player regarding meter and groove, one
Yes.
tends to rubato a lot, and that's where not having other players hurts. Yeah, that's I can.
Rubato can be hard on a verse because if I don't have the lyric, like let's say you do the verse to whatever it is,
Yeah,
if I don't know the verse that well, I'm not sure where you are. And that
yeah,
is the thing with Jack Fearman. If you want to hear some of his, you can't hear conducting, but it's Edie Gourmet doing the verse to I think it's a Costa chart of the verse to My Funny Valentine and I think a lot. Well, I don't know how many he didn't do sessions with Edie Gourmet, but
yeah,
like certainly My Funny Valentine, the verse, he's conducting it. And you really have to know what you're doing because she has to lead it.
yeah.
And I've had trouble with singers sometimes too, because they're waiting for me and I'm saying, well, you've got the lead. And of course it's a give and take thing,
It
but
is, yeah, of
if
course.
I'm backing you up on a verse, I'm going to wait for you to sing the lyric and the note,
Yeah,
But if I don't have the lyric in front of me, I'm not sure what we're doing because if I don't know the tune, the verse that well, which, a lot of times we don't remember the verse.
yeah.
Like My Funny Valentine, great verse, but I hardly ever play it.
Yeah, I totally know that. Actually, Ross and I, when
Oh,
our
he was great at verses. Yeah,
oh, and he was great at verses and rubato,
I
because
love that. Yeah.
it's a definite art form, to sing and play rubato together.
I think the singer and who's ever playing, like if it were me, I'd like to do it more often to really hone in on it. It's not
Yeah,
like, well, we'll do it one time and
yeah,
it's not like doing the tune, that's fine. But that rubato thing, and I learned that from conducting, that rubato thing is just gold. It's just great.
I'll
Yeah.
have to send you. I'll send you also. Diorio and I recorded a record, and what was
Nice.
funny was every song that came up to play, he would say, let's do this slower.
Yeah.
So the whole record ended up being
Oh,
ballads and a lot of rubato.
yeah.
And of course, I mean, some people, it was funny because we recorded that. He had this Italian guy who was putting out his records who did
Oh,
not want that project because Joe was trying out a new, electronic thing. And
oh, he was.
the guy
Okay.
didn't like it. And so it just sat on the shelf for a long time.
Sure.
Then after Joe had his stroke, he was listening to his, stuff, and he called me up and he said, "You know what? This is really pretty. We should put this
Good.
out." So, yeah, so I'll send you that
I'd
one.
like to hear it. Yeah, I don't remember him playing for a lot of singers, if I'm not mistaken. Did
Yeah,
he?
I don't think he did.
No.
No,
I
no.
know he started in Chicago with Eddie Harris. I think he recorded with Eddie Harris, and then he did stuff on his own. I used to see him play with the trio a lot, but I don't remember him with a lot of singers. I could be wrong, but I don't remember.
He's
Yeah.
he's like a guitar player who
Oh
is,
yeah.
up there on the list. I
Oh, he
mean,
could do anything. He could do anything. I
yeah,
played with him once with Ron Ashtay, Joe, and Orange County bass player and driver. It wasn't Luther, I can't remember. And then years later, I did Mundell Lowe and Ron Ashtay, and I think Kendall
oh
and
boy.
what's the electric bass player's name? It was Todd.
Oh, Todd
Johnson, I thought. No?
Johnson. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So it was interesting because it was like an interview too in Pasadena. And Mundell Lowe had an interesting thing to say. He said he was from the South and he started with his dad playing country music and there was a Grand Ole Opry. But he said, he said, there's got to be something else. And I always say that about when someone says, oh, well, so-and-so is the greatest jazz piano player to live. I said, there's got to be something else. You can't just say that guy. So I use that phrase. I love that.
That's very funny. And Mundell was like, oh my God, that's another incredible.
He lived to his 80s.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have you heard Larry Kuntz's song that he wrote for him?
No, I didn't know Larry did. I would assume Ron or Luther would have written one for him, but it was Larry. I'll have to look for that. I didn't
Yeah,
know.
I can't remember the name of it, but it's a really beautiful song. You would like it.
I'd like it. Yeah, I
Um,
know Luther was close to Mundell, so was Ron. Ron Ashtay was close to him.
yeah, I'm gonna interview Ron in a week or two.
That's nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
sure.
Let's see. I wanted to say that Taylor, he goes to UNT. And
That's the
he
university. What is that again? I'm sorry.
North Texas.
North Texas. Does he live there in Texas now, or is he?
I
Yeah.
believe so. And
Yeah.
his teacher, or yeah, teacher Noel Johnston.
Okay. Yeah.
He said he highly recommends checking him out.
Okay. Let me write that down.
Noel Johnston.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, you know who else I came across, who I'm sure you know of? He lives in New Orleans. Is Phil DeGry?
I don't think I know him. I'll write that name down too. Phil, how do you spell the Gry?
Really interesting. Degruy.
Okay. Yeah, I
He's
don't know
kind
him.
of he's got a little bit of a Ted Green thing, but
Right,
the
right.
New Orleans thing, and
Sure.
he's an amazing player, and he never really moved out of New Orleans.
Yeah, a lot of people don't leave where they're from. Like New
Yeah,
Yorkers, some that never left, and I
yeah,
guess people from here that most people are transplants, but a lot of people have,
yeah,
Hawaii's that way. A lot of people never left the islands. They're from there.
yeah,
That's okay.
yeah. And then one more Taylor question is, what about transcribing? Well, we talked a little bit about that,
I
but
could tell them about it. I'm not a good one at that. The thing Howard Roberts told me once, he said, though, if you're going to do that, I don't think he liked it either. He said, don't worry about the whole solo. Just take 4 or 8 bars. And that I remembered. And what I learned from that was I'm not as interested in what the notes are as the rhythms. I like that better.
oh,
Like when
interesting.
you hear a great jazz solo, to me, a lot of times it's the rhythms that are interesting, the phrasing and the rhythms
Yeah,
and the accents, what beat they're on. Like if it's a
yeah,
lot of notes, but where the accents are coming, that's really, it's like a time within itself. And so, sure, the notes are, but most of the time the notes aren't going to be, well, that's not true either. But I'm just saying I like the rhythm part. And
yeah.
I enjoy
That's
it.
interesting. One thing I've noticed about listening to Larry Kuntz, which
Yeah.
I've done a lot, is he has a strumming thing that's unique. I don't
Yeah.
know. I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, but
Sure.
I recognize that it's not the usual
His
stuff.
own thing. Yeah. Right.
Really
Exactly.
interesting. Um,
Sure.
yeah, and it's funny because actually the second half of Taylor's question was, do you like working on full solos versus small fragments? And I remember transcribing, and it was before the amazing slow downer. So
Yeah.
like we were talking before, and I also didn't feel like I was the perfect transcriber. So, but I didn't care. If I
Who
heard
cares?
something and I wrote it down wrong, it didn't matter because I had written it down. I had internalized.
Well, the thing is, somebody may, like, you might have version 1, somebody has version 2 of how they're hearing it.
Yeah,
And we've all had that happen. And I would say it's close enough.
yeah,
And let's say you wrote it down and, you have a minor and it's supposed to be a major, just fix
yeah,
it,
yeah,
that's it. In other words, you really got it close enough. And that's what I have to learn too. If I must do that, just take it off and, improve it later,
yeah,
you know, because even rhythms can throw you off. Is that triplets or sixteenths? They're
yeah,
similar in the way they're phrased. But if you wrote it out as sixteenths, you're playing it as triplets, it's not that big a deal.
yeah,
And you can always change it later. So like you said, just do it. That's what's
yeah.
more important. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Um, and I'm thinking of going to hear your record.
Okay. How
Uh,
about the Toluca Lake one with Harvey? I don't know why the Coachella Valley one isn't up, but let's try this one with it's interview. Shucks.
I
I'm
can
gonna have
find
to
it somewhere else though. Maybe is it on your site?
it should be. And we've had someone else take over the site, and it's a little slow in getting it. How about Sarah? I don't know where that would be. Okay. Yeah,
Let's
that's
just
it,
see.
Doc. See what? Yeah, one of those would be. Any of those are okay. See, yeah, the latest one's not on there, which is a shame. It just came out though. Let's do. Why don't we do a live in Hawaii? That's kind of interesting. That's with vibes instead of as a quartet. Maybe the
Okay,
first tune,
now I'm not
if you
sure
can.
that I can live in Hawaii. I'm going here, and then
You're better at
I
than
might
I
be able
am.
to play it. Oh, I'm not sure I can. I'm not sure if Facebook will. won't take me down if I play
It
Amazon.
won't let you play it.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I should have sent you MP3s ahead of time, but then there's nothing to look at.
Let's see.
It won't give you. It won't give you a little bit of a clip, sound clip.
Well, it doesn't actually matter because here's Live in Hawaii. Good. Okay, so Spotify I think is okay. So which song?
I think My Shining Armor would be good. Not that one. That's another one. There we go. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Dean Taub is on this. Cool.
Yeah. This was from a radio broadcast.
Live in Hawaii.
Another live recording. It's just weird. All these live things just happened by accident. This was a radio broadcast, and the guy Don and I talked about putting it out, and the engineer Jason over there did a great job. So I said, yeah, and they had broadcasted on the radio a couple of times, and I said, well, you know what, it was mixed and mastered, and I said, let's put it out. I mean, I still know there's live issues, but I like the spirit of the recording.
Yeah, very nice. Okay, Taylor ought to be an interviewer. What's the biggest piece of advice anyone has given you?
Quit playing. No. I think persistence is the key. No, tacit, lay out. After when I first started, I was doing a show and I wasn't making it, and the guy said, lay out, and I was so devastated. In those days when I was younger, it's like you said one wrong thing to me and I'd be destroyed. Couldn't play anymore. He said lay out there, and I'm going, oh my God, No, but I think persistence is the key to all these issues we talked about, whether you're learning to write or play, or there's time issues or transcribing. I think persistence, like, even for that, it's that the one that's persistence will get that down. But pretty soon there'd be a hell of a transcriber, which I'm not. But what I'm saying is,
right.
If you're persistent, I think tenacious. The music business is, what can you say? It is what it is, And there's great things and there's terrible things. It's like a bittersweet thing. But I think that tenacious is the way. Persistence. That's the key, I feel.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to do it. You got to keep chipping away every day, keep hitting that,
Yeah.
block.
Did you ever contemplate doing anything else in your life other than guitar?
Well, my folks were in sales, and I was kind of good at it, and I thought about doing it, but I was very stubborn, and I felt like today, I think today's world, you can kind of do what you want to do. But I think back in the day, like talking to another guitarist, Bob Bain, who did the Tonight Show, a lot of studio work, he said he had become a writer as well. I think it was the 60s, but let's say it's the 50s, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
He did some albums for somebody, did strings and everything. And he was at a point where, because in those days they were so busy, you either had to be a guitarist or you had to be a writer. You couldn't really be both. Unless you were already, at a high level for the writing, and somebody said, no, I definitely want you for my film to write, then that'd be fine. But in his case, he just had to stay with guitar because that's what he was getting called every day to do. They didn't want you to do more than one thing. I remember people telling me that. Today, I think I was kind of afraid of being a jack of all trades. You do a little of this, a little of that. And in some ways that can happen with jazz or classical music, or any music really. Like I remember sitting in with a country band, and I remember the guy saying, you did a good job. I was just starting to play. I didn't know what I was doing. He said, but these tunes have set intros and set arrangements, and even sometimes a set solo like the record. So you can't go in and jam in a lot of country stuff. It's got to be exactly the way it goes. And so I felt like it would be hard to be a country player unless you really dedicated your time to that. It's just like, Segovia type or John Williams type solo classical guitar. Some people do both, but for the most part, you'd have to really devote most of your time to that. And it is a problem talking to people like Kim Richmond and some other people, player and a writer. And if I always wanted to do both, and it took me years later to get into it, but I felt like it's a time management problem still to this day. But I felt like, I'm sorry, what was the original question? Because I got so far tracked into this.
The original question actually was, did you ever contemplate doing something other than playing guitar for a living?
Well, yeah, the writing. And the problem is I want to do both. And in the early days, I thought you could only do one thing. But today I feel you could do more than one thing. But as far as another business, I always felt too stubborn to do something else. It's like I want to be a full-time musician. And once again, that means, well, you might have to hustle gigs, because if you're not busy every day with getting called. So I don't know. Today, my mind's changing. I guess people today have to do whatever they have to do to survive. But for me, I always wanted to just do the playing and learn to write. That was it for me. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if that's right or not. I don't know the answer. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about I think I already know the question to this, but how do you feel about the kind of the blending of genres that has occurred over the last 20 years, more and more, it seems like? Do you notice that?
Well, it's like Charlie Parker and also Dexter Gordon. Charlie Parker passed away. Dexter Gordon got a little bit older. They actually, I could be wrong, from what I heard from some interviews, they actually wanted to get into orchestration and composing, in a different way. I think for a jazz player, it's a natural evolution, because what you're doing is you're improvising with the pencil, which now is the computer notation, or you're improvising with the instrument. It's the same kind of thing. So it's another outlet. But as far as genres, when you do something like that, it's a natural thing for things to blend, especially from Charlie Parker's day. The rhythm has definitely changed. It's, and like one guy, I remember, bass player we played with once, and the guy was saying, well, he laid off for a while and he came back, but people don't realize music has moved. I mean, I don't know exactly in what way, but like obviously from 1949, the rhythms have changed. There's more Latin rhythms there. There's more sambas, and then, the only thing I don't like is when you do that, like, let's say a jazz person does some Brazilian stuff, or they do some rock stuff, or like I said earlier, I mean, you could do like a jazz country thing, but I think you should kind of keep it in what you do. Like, I'm not trying to be an authentic country guy, but they criticize you if it's not absolutely authentic. And I say, well, why should it be? Like, if Wes played a bossa nova, it was a jazz version of it. It wasn't somebody from Brazil. So my thing is, I love the crossing of genres, but people should be more flowing about it and not say, well, that wasn't authentic Brazilian. Well, they're not from Brazil. Of course it's not. Why should you try to be,
Actually, I spoke with a Brazilian pianist.
Great.
Let's see. I forget his name right this second, but a very, very Brazilian piano player. And he actually said that in Brazil, they actually welcomed the different players coming and playing Brazilian music, because
it's fresh.
Yeah. And that's what Brazilian music was a mixture of cultures,
I hope so. Like Afro-Cuban and everything else, It's like, why should I try to play authentic Afro-Cuban music? I'm not from either place. I'm not from Africa, and I'm not from Cuba.
Right.
No, but you know what I'm saying? You play your own version of it. It's like blues. I mean, I'm not going to imitate some Delta blues guy. I'm going to do it my version of it, And the thing is that I think music should be fresh. Like John B. Williams, the bass player, always talked about that fresh music. I had a bunch of people when I would be playing with them telling me how to do not just a Brazilian rhythm, but also Freddie Green. Like, well, this is, 1925, like your dad was talking. I say, thank you, but I do it my way.
Yeah.
And I add, talking about, because you have some guitar players, I actually use some upstrokes, which he never did. They do it like I do it with some. I just want to do it my way. I don't want to copy some record. I'm sorry, I don't. It's not for me, And so that's the problem. Is a guy like you're talking about is great. A guy like that, I love to play with, because his mind's open. Other people are, oh well, and I'm sure even in Brazil they have different ways to do it. They wouldn't all be playing it the same. There's different schools.
Yeah.
It's like in jazz, we have the old school, we have the new school, then you have contemporary people, and I think as long as you're open to different sounds, it's cool,
Yeah. Do you practice these days?
Well, I try to. I do more writing. Like what I do every day is I try to get the writing in, and it's very time consuming.
Yeah.
So I'll be playing the guitar less, but I do a lot of gigs, so my hands are moving. But I'm trying to move my brain more than the hands. That's, to me, the instrument is in the brain, And Johnny Smith used to talk about that too. If it's in your head, you'll play it, or your ear, whatever.
Yeah.
But it is a time management problem, for
Yeah.
everybody. If you're trying to play, you're trying to teach, you're trying to write, you're trying to do this, you're trying to do gigs. I mean, sometimes over gigging is hard too, because all you do is run into the gig and getting it over with. It's like it's a balance, as I'm sure you know, with what you're.
Oh, yeah. I'm
Yeah,
always dealing with the time management thing. It kind of drives me crazy because there's so many things I actually want to work on that I think are valuable. But yeah, I mean, you can only, especially when you have some things important to do, you have to focus on that and finish them. And then how much time do you have left over?
I'd love to
Also,
go over the old verses, but I don't know when I'm going to get to it. It's not like the most urgent priority, but like I didn't mean to cut you off, by the way, but that
no,
was.
no, that's okay.
But that's one of the things I'd love to do. Like we just said, I'd love to review some of those verses and say, well, it'd be nice to do this verse again, but I don't know when I'll get to it. Yes,
I know.
certainly not today.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah,
Well, it's been 2 hours.
yeah. Thank you. You're a very nice host. Thank you.
Thanks for being on. Thanks for giving me 2 hours of your
Oh
time.
yeah, anytime.
And speaking of time management,
Oh yeah.
and let's see, are you playing some? Oh, you're playing every Sunday
I'm
in
playing Sunday
LA.
at he calls it the Roguelike Tavern. It's the old Sardo's. It's on Pass Avenue in the Lakeside Shopping Center. It's Paul Krivik on drums and Mike Flick on bass. And it's sometimes we have subs. So if you don't see Paul one week, you'll understand. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's 7 to 10 every Sunday. And then I do Thursdays with Kendall Kay and Mike Flick, and it's 6:30 to 10. It's Pasadena, Edward Mills. And right now in the desert,
Are you doing that every week?
Edward Mills, yeah, every Thursday.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Thursday and then the it's more of a sit-in at the Rogue on Sunday, because at Edward Mills we're outside in this little thing and there's not room for sitting in. Plus, I don't want to make it a big sit-in thing because there's just
Yeah.
no space for it. Plus
Yeah.
we're outdoors. It's just not.
Yeah.
So I don't encourage the sit-in thing there. But the other one is. So two different types of things, and both trio, which I like, gives me a lot of freedom for playing. The desert is basically right now we're at Frankie's tonight, and we're going to a
Excuse
couple
me.
more weeks. Yeah,
For those of you who don't know, Doug lives in North Hollywood, and he also has a place in Palm Springs.
right.
So when he says the desert, that's what he's talking about. Go
Thank you,
ahead.
sorry about that.
No
So
problem.
so basically, Frankie's is going to be a couple more weeks. Unfortunately, he had a stroke. The guy that owns the place.
Oh,
It's in Cathedral City, and he's going to have to close around Christmas. But we're supposed
oh,
to go back into the AJ's, which is now going to be Todd's on the Green on Wednesday. So we'll be transitioning. And we just did a concert yesterday in the desert. There's different things going on, just like here, freelance. So,
oh, yeah.
those are the three little things right now at the moment. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Thank you.
Yeah. I've been trying to get over there on a
Okay.
Sunday, and for some weird reason, my Sundays have just not been available. So,
A lot of
but I
people-
will be, and I can't come this Sunday either, but maybe, or maybe I can. I don't know. I don't think I can. But the following Sunday, let me just peek.
I think I have a sub on the
Oh, good.
19th. So just to let you know,
Oh,
I hardly sub out, but it happens to all of us. You know what I mean?
some
So
some
you
bad
know what?
bad guitar player.
No, not at all. But my point of it is I'd love. Well, of course, you come anytime you want, but I'd
Yeah,
love
of course, I'd love to be there.
yeah, of course, yeah. So that's
Um,
we'll communicate. No worries.
Okay, and I'm just going to say a few things here. You can hang out with me for a minute.
But again,
Tomorrow, I have do live Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So Wednesday is a wonderful singer, Rose Colella. Do you know her?
yeah, she's out of Chicago. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah,
She's really a different kind of singer, but she's
yeah.
excellent singer
She
and
is.
great scatter and
Yes,
really cute. She's she's
Yeah.
a lovely person. So
Yeah.
that's tomorrow we're going to talk. And then Thursday through Saturday, I'm doing through Sunday rather, I'm doing archives. So Thursday is Stephanie Nakazian. Did you ever
I
work with
remember
her?
her. Sure, I did. We did a tribute to June Christie once.
Oh,
And she was married to Hot O'Brien. I used to hear them back east once on a blue moon. Yeah.
great bebop piano player. And she's the mother of Veronica Swift.
Yeah, I haven't heard her yet, but she's
Oh.
good. Yeah.
She's good.
Yeah.
She's really
Yeah.
good. Anyway, so that's Thursday, and Friday is a really great a new friend of mine who I met in this venue here from Brazil, a pianist and composer named Benjamin Tobkin.
I'll check that out for
He's
sure. Great.
wonderful. And then Saturday, Rick Helzer. Did you ever play with Rick?
Yeah, I can't remember him. Remind me who that is. I know the
Piano
name.
player. He used to live in LA and then he moved to San Diego
That's
and
right.
taught there for years at the university. And then
Sure.
now he moved back to his hometown, which is Fresno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he's really smart and
Right.
good, great arranger and
I'll
composer.
check that out too. That's great.
Yeah, and Sunday from New York, a really creative singer, composer named Eilert Rose Gottlieb. She's very modern and
Yeah.
just very creative.
Good to
Next
know.
week, just so everybody knows, the three live people, Janelle Sadler. I don't know if you ever worked with her.
No, but I know her name. Yeah, definitely.
Great singer. She moved to Florida a number of
Yeah.
years ago. And Tuesday, Ron Eschte.
Oh, good. That'll be great.
And Wednesday, Tom Lellis. Did you ever hear him?
Not that I know of. Yeah. Who was Tom?
Singer who was very much into the Brazilian thing. And
Okay.
he had put out a number of records probably 20 years ago or so.
Okay.
And so I'm really interested in
That'll be fun. You got some
Yeah.
great variety. Nice variety. That's great.
so that's cool.
Thank you for doing this. You're a good service to the community.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right. Have a great day, Doug.
Hey, thanks a lot now. We'll see you soon. Take care
Okay.
now. All the best. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks for joining. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thanks.
you. One more thing before I get off. Next week, Thursday, December 9th. Sorry, that is incorrect. Next week, Thursday, December 16th, my group Fish to Birds will be performing for the first time in at least 2 years. We are a vocal improv group, 7 of us who have been together. Most of us have been together about 8 years. And we are a cappella and we create something out of nothing. And most of the time, people come up and say, "How did you learn that song?" Which they don't get that it didn't exist before that moment. So it's really a fun, wonderful group, and each member has their own individual career. Several are international careers. So that is at the conference room, which is where I hold a jam session once a month, and that's in Playa Vista. It's really nice. We are doing it 7 to 9. Normally it's 6:30 to 9:30, but 7 to 9. It was very cold last week, so be sure to dress warmly, but they do have heating lamps and stuff. Great food. It's outside, so don't have to worry. And then Saturday next week, December 18th, I have a very special gig coming up with Larry Kuntz, guitar player, and David Pilch, bass player. I'm so looking forward to it. It's going to be really fun. They are both geniuses and fun. Fun geniuses. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that is December 18th. All of this information you can find on my website, including who's going to be on this show coming up. So have a wonderful Tuesday. I'm really looking forward to the rest of the day because I haven't really scheduled much. So I can get to those things that Doug and I were talking about that I keep putting off, maybe, or maybe not. I always have to practice every day. So once I do that, that's a little chunk of time that's gone. So anyway, thanks again to Doug MacDonald for being on my show today, and I'll see you all tomorrow with Rose Colella.